Hello everyone, and welcome to the Next Wave show by Tech Cabal. On the last episode, we talked about how we can chart a path for more IPOs in Africa's startup ecosystem and what it will take to produce more successful exits in the industry. Today, we will be exploring one of the most interesting and volatile topics in Africa and globally. Cryptocurrencies may seem like a recent fad, but they really trail as far back as the 1980s when they were first known as cybercurrencies. With the introduction of Bitcoin in 2009, they began to grow more popular. In the past 2 years, prices have been hitting all-time highs and adoption has grown in leaps. But there's much more to talk about in crypto than great returns, and I have just the right set of people here today to dig into it with me. First, we're going to start with Buchi, co-founder and CEO of Quidax. Hi, Buchi. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
So let's talk about Quidax and the role Quidax has played in the adoption of cryptocurrency on the continent. First, tell us a little bit about what Quidax does, the inspiration behind founding the company, and then the role you guys are playing in crypto exchange right now.
All right. Thanks for having me. Quidax is a crypto exchange that makes it very easy for anyone to buy and sell cryptocurrency using the local currency. And our story sort of goes back to 2014-ish. So 2014, that period, I was trying to buy Bitcoin, right? I just learned about Silk Road and all of the interesting stuff around it. And so I said, okay, you know what, this Bitcoin thing was really interesting. And I tried to buy one Bitcoin,
Right.
Put together all of my life savings. Long story short, I found this guy online who would sell me Bitcoin. I got scammed, right? That was my first introduction. Fast forward a couple of years later, I was still interested, right? But then I got burned the first time. But my co-founder, he used to teach people to code on Code Mentor. And so because PayPal wouldn't pay him in Nigeria, you could get paid in two ways, PayPal or Bitcoin. PayPal wouldn't pay him in Nigeria, obviously. So he took Bitcoin in his crypto wallet, right? So I'm like, this money was just sitting there. The guy had no way to get it out. I'm like, okay, cool. So I know people who want to buy Bitcoin. So we created a WhatsApp group.
Right.
And that's literally how it started, right? So he brought in some of his developer friends. And then, I brought in people I knew. And then we had this peer-to-peer thing going. And then people were just buying and selling between themselves. So from that point, we saw how important crypto was to people.
Right.
We saw like actual real life use cases. We saw the interest, we saw the demand. And then like, underneath all of that, like it showed how important this financial instrument could be to the entire Africa, right? How important crypto was for Africa, how important it was to create easy access. There were some people who were trying to make it easy at the time, but no one had quite cracked it, right?
Right.
So we said, okay, cool, let's use all of this stuff we've learned to build a platform that actually solves the problem for Africa, that solves the problem in a way that no one has tried to do it before. And that's how we set on the journey to build Quidax.
Thank you so much, Buchi, for your insights. Now, cryptocurrency adoption in Africa is growing rapidly. A 2021 report found that adoption of crypto in Africa surged by 1,200% between July 2020 and June 2021, making Africa one of the fastest growing markets. That's some massive growth that's set to increase even more greatly in the coming years. Many see the continent as the next crypto frontier, and they may not be wrong going by the numbers we're seeing. So Buchi, how do you envision this growth is going to, one, help technological advancement on the continent, and two, get even more crypto adopters to come out of Africa and even move into a global market?
So when you think about adoption in crypto, there's first network effects, right? So the more people come in and then try to use cryptocurrency, the more valuable it becomes for everyone else using cryptocurrency, right? And for Africa, crypto is more than an investment vehicle, right? So for the West, you find that a lot of people say, okay, you know what, let me buy Bitcoin, I hope it grows. But in Africa, we just don't have that much disposable income to want to tie in one place, right? Think about the GDP of sub-Saharan Africa. I think that's somewhere around 1,400, right? Per capita for sub-Saharan Africa. Now, compare that to Europe, where GDP is $33,000, right? So we just don't have that cash to spare.
Yeah.
Now, you have people actually using cryptocurrency for real stuff. And the reason it's growing this fast is because our problems are plenty, right? I mean, when you think about financial infrastructure, financial inclusion, simple access to the global monetary system, right?
Yeah.
So even trying to do basic stuff like buy stuff online, right? So you have all of these roadblocks here and there, and then crypto has proven to be one of the easiest ways people can get access to the global financial system. I'll give you a very basic example. Last year, I was trying to buy a game from PlayStation,
Right.
right? And I tried everything. I tried all the cards I knew. I even I tried to get a PayPal account. I got blocked. Like I tried everything. The only thing that worked for me at the end of the day was using Bitcoin to buy a card and fund my PlayStation account, right? This is something as basic as PlayStation, right?
Yeah.
So it's not life threatening, but from where we sit at Quidax, we've seen like life threatening situations where moving money from point A to point B
Yeah.
in as short a time as possible, in as seamless a way as possible. It was only crypto that could do it, and like it saved someone's life literally. It helped somebody go to school the next day, right? We've seen like insane stories, but all of this stuff, like actual use cases, the fact that you don't have an option, right? In some cases, where you have an option, you could use Venmo, you could use Cash App, you could use all of these different channels, right? The system is working, the infrastructure is built. It's easy to say, okay, you know what, I use this, right? All of the problems is solved for you. But with Africa, is a bit more than investment, right? So it is use cases that are actually driving growth and adoption in cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Is the fact that we don't have an option, we don't have anywhere to run to, that's making people say, okay, you know, why don't I consider cryptocurrency? So it's not just about convenience or making some extra cash, even though, you know, that's the case for some people,
Yeah.
even though it sounds like the case for a lot of people, right? But we found that what actually drives the very large number of people using cryptocurrency, the large volume of transaction, is people that have actually found use cases for cryptocurrency.
I love the point you made about comparing how much disposable income, let's say, a large group of Africans have in Africa versus people living in the US or in the UK, right? They have cash to quote unquote burn, right? So, which brings me to my last question. If we're dealing with factors such as poverty rates, increasing poverty rates, we have infrastructure issues on the continent, right? What other factors, one, do we need to look out for that could affect cryptocurrency adoption on the continent? And then what possible solutions, just in your own expert opinion, what possible solutions could we deploy to get over those hurdles that exist right now?
Okay. So factors affecting cryptocurrency adoption and possible solutions, right?
Yes.
So number one factor, you know, everyone says it, regulation,
Yeah.
right? I remember the day like it was yesterday, February 5th,
Yes, right down to the
2021.
date.
Right down to the date, where, you know, CBN said no. CBN basically shut out cryptocurrency. There was no ban on cryptocurrency, right? There was just a shutout to the financial system of Nigeria, right? Now that was interesting and that was profound. Now they were very well within their rights to do that, right? But then this affected a lot of innovation that was already happening in the space, right? A lot of growth that we had seen, and just at the point where it happened, there was actually a lot of growth that was happening just at that point. It was beginning of the year, like a lot of people had plans, a lot of people had built things, a lot of people were working on things, right? So this like affected the dreams of a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right. So I think the first thing is regulations and regulatory uncertainty.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's such a big deal. Then secondly is talent. Right. Now people don't talk about this a lot, but in our position where the first Nigerian exchange to do what we were doing, right? The only other people who had done it before were foreign competition. And when we started, we had no money. So we couldn't even go and meet these guys, say, hey, come and work for us. Like, are you playing?
Yeah.
Who are you?
Yeah.
Right? So we had to learn everything from scratch. Yeah. We didn't have enough people who knew about what we were trying to do. We had to train, we had to learn, we had to pay a lot of tuition. By paying tuition, I mean like making mistakes on our own. To figure stuff out, right? A lot of the stuff that we're doing today, we learned by saying, okay, yeah, this makes sense, this makes sense. I mean, we did try to get some advice from people who were doing this stuff in the West, but, we didn't have enough people. And I think for solution, number one, regulations, that's very simple. Of course, regulators have the duty to protect the interest
This
of
is true.
consumers.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's so important. It is so important, especially in a space that's new and just growing, and where people tend to invest money and have the potential, the very, very real potential to lose that money. Yeah. So, regulators have to protect investors, protect the financial system, right?
Yeah.
Which is what they're trying to do. But while that's happening, you don't want to kill the goose, right?
Yeah.
So you want to also make sure you're trying to protect the innovators who are doing like legit stuff, who are positioned to grow the economy, who are positioned to help your life, right? So to speak. So it will be for regulators to understand, regulators to know what's going on in this space, and then help to put in the guidelines that help people get confidence. Because what happened on the 5th of February, it's destroyed a lot of confidence investors will have in the space, right? It really damaged it, because they're like, oh, if I invest in your company, what happens? CBN comes and says,
Right.
you know what? We don't
Valid.
like you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like dead you, right? Yeah, that really affects things, right? So putting in proper regulation, not just in Nigeria, we have a similar stance in Egypt, we have similar stance in Kenya, we have similar stance in Ghana as well. South Africa is the one country where they are a lot more open, and then they are progressive about letting the players play while they still work on their own regulation,
Yeah.
right? But like trying to just kill everybody while we are still figuring our stuff out, before you're done figuring it out, the industry might have moved, and crypto
That's
moves
true.
really,
Very
really, really
quickly.
fast,
Yes,
right?
that's true.
So the solution there will be for regulators to understand that, of course, it's still growing, but we need to try and protect the people who are playing in this space, so that our economy, our people don't fall behind while we're trying to figure our stuff out, right? So that's one on regulation. And number two, on people. For people, I think Africa is blessed. Africa is insanely blessed. We have the youngest population. If you think about the median age, Nigeria is somewhere around 18, 19, with a population of over 200 million people, right? Ghana, somewhere around 60 million, Kenya, 50 million people. South Africa, where like you have, higher median age, I think about 28 years old, you still have over 60 million people, right? So from population talent, potential talent for the future type of thing, like I think we're really blessed, right?
Yeah.
So I would say the solution there is for a lot more education, and then a lot of people are doing stuff in this space, right? Trying to teach people, trying to give people experience, right? On cryptocurrency, on stuff of the future, on blockchain, right? So I do think there'll need to be a lot more investment in learning and education, not from schools,
Right.
right? Not from schools. Those guys, they
Right.
have their own approach to, all of that. But yeah, from actual practical stuff, right?
Yeah.
Stuff that's going on in industry, there'll need to be a lot more dedicated approach to learning and teaching people, to upskilling people, so that when new technologies are coming on board, it is easy to find people who have the faintest clue about what's going on to help build, right? Because ultimately, as a tech company, as a tech startup, you need people to build. As an economy, you need people to build, but much more important as a tech startup. Yeah.
Wow, thank you so much. Essentially, don't throw out the baby and the bathwater together, right?
Exactly.
We need regulatory policies to help the industry still sort of growing and new, and then we need to train people and upskill people.
Exactly.
Appreciate you coming on the show with us, Buchi.
Thank you so much, KK.
Now we're gonna go on a commercial break, and we'll be right back with Marius. Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for sticking with us. Now we're going to speak to Marius, who is General Manager, Luno Africa. Now, we can't talk about crypto without talking about regulation. And in Africa, that's interesting to note, considering that as of 2020, only 5 African countries had progressive cryptocurrency regulation. One can understand the regulators' concern because something so volatile presents a world of risk as much as it does opportunity. It also doesn't help that what is reportedly the world's biggest cryptocurrency scam happened in South Africa, with consumers losing billions of dollars. So concerns are valid, but where does it become stifling, and how can stakeholders find a balance? Marius, please share your thoughts with us.
Okay. Yes, as you said, we've seen tremendous growth across Africa over the past 2 years or so. We've seen more people, owning cryptocurrency than before, and we've seen more transactions flowing through platforms as well. So I think it's very important for us to focus on regulation as well. We need to put some safeguards in place to protect consumers, and I think in some respects, regulation will also enable the industry, the cryptocurrency industry, to actually grow and to actually grow better, and to also drive further adoption. So I think in our view at Luno, we would like to see a focus on a cryptocurrency platform. So regulations focused on the companies providing the services, the companies making it easy for consumers to buy and sell cryptocurrency. We think that it's very important for cryptocurrency businesses offering services to the public that they are capable, that they've got the expertise and the knowledge to safeguard people's funds, to safeguard people's information. And I think that is the element that regulators should be focusing on. Trying to regulate cryptocurrency itself will be very challenging, right? Because just the very nature of crypto being global, being borderless, will be very, very challenging and might even have unintended consequences. So I think low-hanging fruit for regulators to focus on the companies providing crypto services to ensure a safer market for all.
Now, when we talk about blockchain technology in Africa, we understand that it has multi-dimensional possibilities. Yet it seems that a lot of the conversations around blockchain are geared towards crypto and financial services. And it's perhaps the biggest application, but there's always more to the story. Globally, around $962 billion of the blockchain industry's contribution came from source verification. What are some of the other really interesting use cases for blockchain technology, in your own opinion, Marius?
I think cryptocurrency is still, as you mentioned, the most popular and the most dominant use case of blockchain technology, and it was the first application of blockchain technology as well. I think if we look at the challenges that as Africans experience in terms of doing business, in terms of being financially included, I think it always comes back to money. It always comes back to payments. And one of the biggest use cases that will be unlocked in Africa specifically is around remittances and cross-border flows. And so if you look back over the past year or two, the cross-border flows across Africa total just over $40 billion US, right? And if we look at the fees that consumers are charged for sending funds cross-border, that's roughly 10% or so. So it's roughly $4 billion US that flows to intermediaries, companies processing these payments. So imagine a world where all that value can end up in the pockets of the consumers, right? Instead of ending up in the pockets of intermediaries processing these payments. So I think still, despite all the other interesting use cases, I think remittances is one of the use cases that cryptocurrency and blockchain will unlock across Africa over the next, probably over the next decade still, because we're still so early on in this journey. Some of the other use cases, as you mentioned, Keiko, is around identity. The ways in which we currently share our information with third parties is not secure and safe. And also the ways in which third parties like financial institutions treat and the way in which they treat our information is also not the best, right? So looking at tokenized identity and the way in which that can provide security to people around their identities is definitely an interesting use case. I do think that still lots of water needs to flow under the bridge for that to happen. There needs to be a massive incentive for big businesses, banks, financial institutions to really adopt digital identity. And I think that's going to take the longest time.
Thank you so much. Super valuable and insightful thoughts there. Now, our final question for you is how we can begin to key into these use cases For example, in areas like source verification, medicine, real estate, energy, and so on. How can we key into blockchain technology to go beyond just cryptocurrency and actually addressing other issues in these different sectors?
That's a very good question, and I don't have an easy answer for that. I think these technologies must, better than the current solutions in the market. So if people are currently happy with the way in which their identity gets verified in Nigeria, for example, then there's no incentive really for people from a top-down level to push changes, right? So I think there needs to be an incentive somewhere for big business to say, listen, we need to do things better. And then, unfortunately, unlike cryptocurrency, which is growing from a grassroots level up, because it's easily accessible from individual perspective, and it's not controlled by a central entity. I think, unlike that, some of the other use cases, unfortunately, will have to be implemented and pushed down from a top to bottom approach. So I think it will naturally take a bit longer. I do think we need to go back to the basics, and that's around financial inclusion. A number of people across Africa with access to banking services, and so the real problem there really sits with access. Right, it's not easy for people at this point across most African markets to access financial services. Right, so we need to solve the access problem where it becomes easier and safer for people to access basic financial services. And once we've solved that problem, then we can look into other use cases such as supply chain, such as digital identity, some of the other trade finance applications of blockchain as well.
Thank you once again, Myris, for joining us. And thank you to everyone who tuned in to today's episode. Remember that you can tweet at us using the hashtag NextWaveCNBC, or you can send an email to thenextwave@techabal.com. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.